So this sounds like a, right over here, Doug.
And if you can, awesome. Go ahead with the first question.
Hi. So this sounds like a great idea, but I don't see it actually happening until somebody can make money off of it. So you had mentioned getting a browser to buy into this. Do you see like internet providers needing to buy into this, or big business? Any thoughts on that?
So as the developer of this thing, I don't see any money in it for me. There's everything in it will be open because it has to be open, otherwise there's no reason for you to trust it. There's no proprietary lock on it at all. So I don't get anything from it. It's similar to the deal I got with JSON, right? I did JSON. I haven't gotten dime one on JSON, and that's fine. You know, I made the world a better place. You know.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. I don't understand how browsers make money, but you know, as long as more people are using their browsers, then apparently they do it. So I think, given that the cost to them is extremely low and it keeps them at least at parity with their competitors, if we can break the chicken and egg problem, then I think that'll work. The people who benefit the most from this, I think, are going to be you. That you're going to be able to make classes of reliable applications that you just can't make today.
Awesome, thanks. So before we go to our next question, I do want to make a quick announcement about the party tonight. We're super excited. So we got Kawahi's gonna do some singing, things like that. It's over at the Poolside Pavilion. So it's just around here, close to the freeway by the pool. There's a tent, looks like a big circus tent. That's where that's at. But if those of you remember from registration, you got a small little plastic bag. And in that plastic bag, there were lots of tickets. And one of those tickets was a drink ticket. But you only have one. And so if you do want more beer tonight, more wine, whatever it is, the sponsors out there, they do have a big stack of drink tickets. But what they ask is help them promote. You know, we want to share the gratitude and thank them for being sponsors for making Angular U happen. And if you can tweet something with Wrangler.io or Form.io and the hashtag AngularU, then those guys would love to give you a drink ticket. And thank you for helping promote them. So with that, next question.
We have a question right here.
Hi. I think your idea is brilliant, and I want to be one of your users of your thing. I forget my password every month when I pay my bills. It's horrible. And my personal data has been compromised. I've gotten letters from my health care provider telling me that, and that I should not feel too bad because it wasn't my health information that was compromised. It was only my social security number and stuff like that. So, but I do have a question. This VAT that you said it would live in the cloud, how do you keep that secure?
We're using something called an object capability system, where we have rules for how you can get a reference to an object or to a function. And without such a reference, you cannot possibly communicate with that object. And so that limits your ability to do stuff. So by enforcing this capability model, we can build a very reliable system with virtually no runtime cost. It's like there's a firewall around every object, but with zero cost for implementation and operation.
This is on? Okay, cool. My name is Frank. I work for a company called LiveRes.com. I'm really excited for TypeScript, Angular 2, and ECMAS 2015 or 6 or whatever. But a lot of this talk was, you talked a lot about how complexity is bad. Like with the web, we've created a lot of complexity. What's your opinion on compiling JavaScript, like using TypeScript or compiling, JavaScript from 6 to 5 for backwards compatibility?
I don't think it's worth the trouble. I don't need TypeScript. The things that its types provide does not give enough value to me to be worth the trouble. I'm hoping that someday type systems are worth the trouble. I have not seen one yet. The best type system we have so far is the one that's in Haskell. And it is infinitely better than the one that you get in TypeScript, and it's not good enough yet. So I'm encouraged that we're still doing research in type theory. I'm hoping that eventually we'll figure it out, how to get something with a minimal notation which provides the right level of safety for a reasonable amount of effort. We're not there yet. And until we get there, I find I'm more productive just with plain old JavaScript. Now, if it turns out that you were trained in Java or C# and that's just how you think and you cannot think functionally, then TypeScript makes a lot of sense. But for me, I'm never going to pretend that there are classes in JavaScript again, because it's just not worth it. That functions are so much more expressive. And if you don't understand functions, what I just said doesn't make any sense. You probably didn't even hear words. It's just, you didn't even hear it. So there are some good parts in ES15, some bad parts. The worst bad part in ES15, class. Because what it does is it locks you into this classical paradigm. And as long as you're locked into that paradigm, you will never learn how to use that language effectively. You're always going to be trying to pretend that you're in Java, and it's not Java, and it's going to slap you hard every once in a while because it's not what you think it is. And you pay for all the baggage in classes. You have to do the taxonomy all the time, and the refactoring, and all of that stuff. And it turns out when you're doing stuff in the functional model, you never do any of that work. You never have to do it. That the people who are stuck in the classical model will go to their graves never knowing how miserable they were.
So one really quick, anyway, what you were talking about, Doug, did sound like the idea, we need a book when you started talking about the good parts and the bad parts. But anyway, quick announcement for the speakers. We are going to have a little dinner reception for the speakers, so meet out by registration right after the Q&A. So with that.
Hello. I didn't know if you had a name yet for this security thing, but I was actually thinking of one that helps convey security, and I don't think it's taken yet, and the name is ActiveX. I was wondering, what do you think?
I think I didn't hear you.
ActiveX?
ActiveX.
Yes.
Scary. So only the power of good can beat the power of bad.
So I'm responding very briefly to what you said about type systems. So yes, there may be better type systems than, say, TypeScript, Haskell being a good example. But personally, in my development, I'm trying not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so, for example, just one random counterexample is, say, when you're dealing with back-end APIs and someone on the back end may change the data they're sending to you, if you can do something in a full stack way where you can type check the full stack, essentially, that you have, say, a TypeScript interface for your DTOs or whatever data they're sending back, you can make sure that if that ever changes on the back end, then you're going to get a compile error on the front end. That's great. So anyway, that's my one quick counterexample. So the other thing is, I'm sure you have counter examples. Actually, I was very interested to ask. You mentioned, like, very briefly and casually, we should have had an.
Can I stop you
Yeah.
there? What was he saying? I did want to. Well, maybe you should keep going again. So don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying there is no value in type systems. I'm saying there's not enough value yet in type systems. And you know, for any time you see a programmer who's trying to cling to something which is, to use the nice word, suboptimal, you know, if you can find one case where it pays off, then that justifies everything. And the world's bigger and more complicated than that. Do we have another one? Yeah.
I can hardly believe I'm suggesting this, but with all of the recent high-profile data breaches and the fact that the world's clearly only going to get worse in this respect, along with being like a financial incentive for the things that you're recommending, is there also like a legislative approach? I think that we're going to get overrun by that if we don't get in front of it. We, as programmers, as developers, we've had kind of a free ride for a long, long time. Our day of reckoning is coming. I would rather we lead the parade than get run over by it.
Well, I'm really surprised that you would say that with all these people behind you. That you're asking for more personal liability from all these people. I think that's what you're asking for, and perhaps criminal responsibility. I would really like to figure out a way to get this fixed before Congress gets involved. Because when you get to where the government thinks they're going to fix it for us, you know, that's where it gets bad. And we've been fortunate mostly up until this point that what we do is so baffling to them that they have left us alone. The one place where that failed was in patents, where you know, we've got a patent system that is violently working against all of us, and I'm hoping someday we can get that fixed. But looking at how long it's taking to get that fixed, and it doesn't appear we've made any progress, I'd like to keep the government out of our work as long as we can.
So a little bit of blast from the past. It's been a few years since JavaScript, the good parts, and there was a follow-up of, you know, the bad parts. And there was a proliferation of JavaScript frameworks in the last few years. It's just an explosion. Can you talk a little bit about some of the anti-patterns that you see in frameworks in the last few years?
I'm not going to say anything bad about any of the frameworks. I mean, they are all better than nothing. For example, just writing to browsers to the naked DOM, that's just a horrible thing. You know, and even the worst library is infinitely better than that. So the hard part about all of these libraries is how you decide which one to use. And the problem with that is that every one of them is a trap. You know, once you've spent the time to figure out how the thing works, you've made a huge investment, and you're probably not going to be able to, oh, that was too complicated, let's try another one. You know, you're pretty much stuck at that point. But that's still better than talking to the DOM.
So I wanted to ask you a question. First of all, I want to say thank you. I'm right here in the middle. In the middle.
Oh, there you are.
I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, for your contributions to the web, and also for your work in video games. But I also wanted to say, where can we follow the progress on this project? Because I'm really interested in kind of seeing where it goes.
Right, so thank you. Thank you very much for that. So my intention is to do this all in the open. So the reason I'm being vague about all this stuff is I'm not quite to the point yet where I can do that, but once I can, it'll all be out there, and then, you know, we can all watch it and play with it together. I can't tell you when that's going to happen. You know, it's not because there's something terrible or mysterious. I just don't know yet. So, but when I do, then we'll make it open, and off we'll go. And once it's open, I can't make any predictions as to when it'll be finished. You know, it's software. You know how software goes. Real soon now.
Thanks, Doc. And it's here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
It sounds to me like a brilliant idea, and sounds like it could work. I'm just wondering, are you just working by yourself, or you have some sponsor, actually some PhD students help you to speed things up?
Perhaps so. Once I get to the point where I can open it, then we can start to look at collaboration and really open it up. I'm just not there yet. Again, it was really irresponsible for me to come today and talk about this because I'm just not ready.
Hi, does the idea of better web security really have to be tightly coupled with whether or not you're using a language that's strongly typed or not, or even the data transfer format? Does it really, I mean, couldn't that be abstracted as well, whether it's JSON or something completely different?
So this is not generally remembered. Java was the first language of the web. Well, you look like a really old guy. You probably remember that.
Thanks a lot. I was just glad to see someone here that looked older than me.
So Java applets were predicted to be the future of software. And Java experienced the biggest, most public, humiliating failure in the history of software. You know, even though it was a stronger type than JavaScript. It turns out that the capability model doesn't care about type systems. It just cares about the rules by which references to objects are obtained. And it turns out JavaScript is really good at that. There are a couple of things in JavaScript that are bad at that, particularly the global object. So we're getting rid of that. That does not share a global object. Node does a similar thing, which is really good. The thing that the browsers do is horrendously bad. Once you fix that breach, JavaScript actually has some extremely good security properties, particularly after ES5 when we added freeze. So we can take an object and make it immutable. That means I can take that immutable object and give it to some code that I don't fully trust, and it cannot in any way tamper with that object. But it can use that object and the interfaces it provides to access and mutate as allowed by my methods. And that's really good. And that turns out writing functionally in JavaScript with frozen objects is the only way in this silly language to get the security properties that we need. But we can get them. And with that, we can build secure systems much more easily than we could in Java. Okay.
Hi, Douglas. I have a question about the how are we going to go about building this set-top box that we're going to add on the web browser? Do you perceive it as a plugin that you add on the web browser, an application, or and if so, is it only going to be coming from one company or developer, or is it going to be other companies being able to develop this kind of like set-top box that we do for televisions?
So since there's no money in it, I don't imagine there are going to be a lot of independent implementations, but there might be. You know, what we really need is one open one. And it will come in various forms. One will be an installable so that you can go to a browser and install it and it will run. But again, I don't expect anybody except for you guys to do that. Then we'll try to convince the browser makers to make that standard equipment so it comes already built in. And if we can get to that, then we win.
Hi, my name is Ahmed. I had a quick question about your concerns on HTML. You mentioned there are security concerns. Do you find any other development platforms solving these problems, for example, in iOS or Android, solving these problems that you mentioned?
I don't know. I have not looked at that.
Okay.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes. I think we got time for one more question.
What is your opinion of using biometrics like retina scans for security?
So I love biometrics. So one of the things I'm concerned about is that the easiest way to compromise my system is what used to be called rubber hose cryptography, where someone hits you with a rubber hose and steals your stuff. So if you have the system on and it's functioning and someone takes your stuff, then they have access to all your stuff, right, and all your accounts, and that's really bad. So something I've been hoping for, that I'm expecting, that I'm planning on, is that someone will figure out the solution to that, and it's probably biometrics of some form, so that the device knows that it's not in my hand anymore. And at that point, it'll just shut itself down and become opaque until it sees that I'm back again, and then it'll open up and become productive. So I'm not going to solve that problem because I've got enough to do, but I'm really hoping that someone else solves that problem because it's a really important one. All right, I'm out of time.
So we
Thank
got,
you,
we got
everybody.
one last question from Ward, wrap things up.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, despite my talk, I hate classes too, and I'm holding you personally responsible because you let them in. Why did you let them in?
So why are there classes in ES 15?
Yeah, and why didn't you stop it?
Yeah. So it was the most requested new feature in ES 6.
That never stopped you before.
So I managed to stop it the first time when it was called ES4. I managed to stop ES4, and we did ES5 instead, which was much less ambitious, but way fewer bad parts were added in ES5 than would have been added with ES4. And at that, I paid all of my karma points to get that to happen. And at that point, I had nothing left. And TC39, which is the ECMA committee, which is responsible for that, was tired of hearing me saying, let's make it smaller, let's make it good. You know, they were saying, And partly it's because every once in a while they would do a survey of you guys, and they'd ask, you know, who wants this? You know, my feature in ES6 is tail recursion. So, because you need that to do functional programming, and I got that in. That is the feature that's probably going to be the last one to be implemented by all the browsers. They're implementing everything else first. And they're holding that one to the last because nobody's telling them, yeah, that's the thing we want. The thing they're all going to do first is classes. Not my fault.
Oh, nobody's blaming you, Doug. Great contributions to the web, and we definitely thank you. And we thank you tonight for coming and doing an amazing closing keynote for the Angular Review First Scout.